各位这个行业的朋友们，大家好啊！那欢迎来到今晚的一个 workshop 啊，我是这个主持人 Tracy 啊。咱们今天这主题呢，就是这个 Avalanche Grant 的一个获奖项目啊，Pakt 啊，Blockchain Business，然后 The New Era of Tokenized Stakeholder Capitalism，啊，也是非常荣幸的能和大家一起探讨这个激动人心的一个新商业模式啊。然后咱们也邀请到了一个 Avalanche 咱们生态的明星项目啊，Pakt 的 CEO 兼这个联合创始人啊，Brandon。然后这个 Pakt 呢，不仅啊是咱们这个首届啊 Avalanche Quiz Pitch Contest 的一个获胜者啊，更是在这个重新定义利益相关者资本主义方面呢，开出了一些开创性的一个探索啊。那不仅如此呢，哎，咱们这个 Brandon 老师啊，还邀请到了咱们 Pakt 的 CTO 啊，Gideon，还有咱们 designer 啊 Sagan 两位老师，哎呀，也一同啊跟大家一起分享这个主题。那开始之前呢，还是有几点这个小提示啊。首先呢，大家有什么问题啊，在这个聊天区啊都可以留言，然后一会儿 Q&A 环节呢会统一解答。另外呢，直播结束之后，我们这个回放链接啊会分享到这个社群啊，方便大家一起回顾。然后一会儿咱们就让这个 Brandon 老师来进行分享啊。Okay, so good morning, good evening, friends in the blockchain industry. Welcome to tonight's special workshop. I'm Tracy, the host of tonight. And our today's sharing topics is Avalanche Grand Winner Projects Pact, blockchain business, and new era of tokenized stakeholder capitalism. It's a great honor to explore this exciting new business paradigm with you. And we invited Brandon, the CEO and co-founder of Pakt, and also Brandon invited Gideon, the CTO, and we have Sagan here, the designer, to we can together to explore the vibrant world of Pakt. And Pakt is not only the winner of the first Avalanche Create Pitch Contest, but also made pioneer explorations in redefining stakeholder capitalism. So if you have any questions, you can leave the message in the chat area and at any time, and we will answer them in the QA session. And after the live broadcast, we will share the playback link to the community for everyone to review. Now, just let us warmly welcome our tonight's heavyweight, our guest, Brandon, Sagan, and also Gideon. With let's give them warmest applause. Yeah. So, Brandon, you can start to present.
Thank you. Thank you so much for having us here. It is wonderful to be here. I'm joined, as you noted, by Shagan, who is our CTO, and Gideon, who is our designer. And we are very excited today to show you what we've been building for since actually the beginning of Avalanche. So I'll give you a little bit of a backstory of what Pact is, how we came to be, and then our grand vision for what the future is showing us. Because I find that blockchain covers so many different potential opportunities, whether you think of DeFi or gaming or institutions or new things that are even being created as we speak, real world assets. We need to make sure that if we're talking blockchain, it's almost like talking about the internet. It's just so big. So I want to always show here's where our worldview is, and here's why it steers us to build what we build. So first and foremost, what Pact is it is the quickest way to turn your application that you've built with AI into an application that now is a business. I want to share my screen real quick because I'm going to just do a lot of screen sharing this time. And also our designer will share some of his screen as well. So I'm going to show you, this is it, build blockchain businesses with AI, powered by Pact. So what you do with Pact is you use an AI coding tool. People have heard of vibe coding or AI assistants where you type in natural language and then it turns into an application, but it turns into something like this. And I'll show you a demo in just a second. But if you prompt AI code tools with our APIs, you get to integrate things like blockchain wallets, our whole services of Pact Suite tools, things like authentication and file uploading. And then you also get access to an intuitive business command center that looks like this. It's a place to run a business that turns your app that started as an application. So what we're doing right now is we are trying to bake blockchain trust into every online engagement using the tools that are at the cutting edge. And those two tools right now are AI and blockchain. So, who are we? Why are we building this in the first place? So, I first met Shagun, our CTO, when pre-Avalanche mainnet, there was a grant program and we were both admitted into it. So, this was back in 2021, I believe. And he was building a decentralized music streaming app, and I was building a decentralized active portfolio management. And I wanted to find who the other people in the cohort were for the grant process. So I reached out to him. I was curious about his build, and we immediately struck up a really fast friendship. And the reason was we both had the same frustration with the world at large. I had worked in Hollywood, and I had been either a screenwriter or an executive, and I was asked to exploit people, to abuse their trust. And Shegun, he had built the pilot programs for banks and logistics companies in Nigeria that put them on chain, but he still was very frustrated with the lack of trust within basically his whole society. And so we had a shared vision of using blockchain to bake trust into the internet, all of these connections that we're on. So we fast forward a little bit, and we wanted to create a company that at the beginning was going to have marketplaces, something that looked like this. This is called Pakt.build, and it grew out of something called Afro.fund, which was connecting African tech talent to global opportunity. And that was saying if you wanted to get some work from somebody anywhere in the world, unfortunately, sometimes if you're in an ascending nation, people aren't going to trust you, and you may not trust them. So what we did is we created a system where you could build a job, and that job could be put on chain with a deposit into a non-custodial escrow wallet, and then both parties trust each other. And so what we have here is a platform that grew out of the very beginning of our company 3 or 4 years ago, and now it's updated to be working for the community as writ large. So you see social media style, and then you see leaderboards and you see scores. The scores represent your past performance on the platform. This informs you of all the engagements or all the opportunities. And if you want to create work, you just come here and say, demo or tin sample job. You put in the amount, the due date, the skills, and then when it's time for you to hire someone, you have to make a deposit into a non-custodial escrow wallet that lives on chain. And this is different than other work marketplaces that are more Web 2 instead of Web 3, because once that wallet has that money, both parties are now equal. It's not the client who has more power than the builder, than the worker. It is the client and the builder are on the same page, and that same page is the blockchain. So we started building that out, and then what we recognized is in building that, we were creating the first layer of a stack to build out a whole brand new internet. So we took this to Avalanche Creates back in 2022, and we did a demonstration. It was in the Bay Area in California, and we were very fortunate that we won first place after doing a demo of this type of platform and pitched them the grander vision, which was let's make it so that anyone in the world can launch what we call a chain site, one of these types of platforms, whether it's for work or whether it's an Uber or a decentralized application. We wanted to make sure that it wasn't just centralized parties building the new future of the internet. We wanted to empower you to build the future that you wanted to live in and use blockchain to do so. So after we won that Avalanche Creates, we got our very first check, our very first investment, and it was from actually a Fenbushi scout fund. I know Fenbushi is a very prominent VC in China, and our friend Peter, he was working both at Fenbushi and the scout fund, gave us our first check. And that's when I decided, because Shagun is African and he had his whole team there that was building with us, I decided to move to Africa. And I lived in Africa for a year with Shagun, with Gideon, and with other developers and engineers and designers. And we got this build all complete. Not just this, but the vision for what Pact was. So when we were starting to gain momentum, and I was living in Rwanda with the team, and we were all living together in a developer house, we actually started to attract some significant attention from very big players like MasterCard. So MasterCard had us fly to London, and we presented to them, to Lloyd's, to HSBC, to Swift, this future for a world that was shifting away from a capitalist approach that really wasn't working anymore. It was breaking for the people at the bottom. And the thing about capitalism, if it breaks for the people at the bottom, soon it will break for the people at the top. It just crumbles and crumbles, and then finally everyone's in the same unfortunate situation. So they were very intrigued by it, but we hadn't come up with the full name for it yet. We hadn't figured out how to phrase this. So then I came back, and the last big shift before we got into what we are right now was understanding that AI is coming. And we wanted to make sure that when we were empowering builders, we weren't empowering them in opposition to this new trend of super intelligent computing and assisted coding and having chatbots and LLMs working with and for you. We wanted to work with that. And that was the last step where we realized now we can take this world of blockchain, tokens, and smart contracts and fair balance between partners, and we can empower it with AI. And now we can use it to help people build platforms that normally would take 3 months. They can build it in 3 weeks or maybe even 3 days. So we did our very first experiment, and our very first experiment was something called TipJar. And TipJar is an application that was made by Gideon. So Gideon, who is on this call, he's not just our designer, he's also a really good DJ. And he wanted to create an application where he could go out and do shows and get paid for it. And what he was doing at that show was entertaining a lot of people, but not necessarily understanding what parts of his show they liked the most or who liked it the most. So he said, I want to create an application where I can get tipped in crypto anywhere and everywhere. And he told a platform called Lovable. That's what he wanted to do. Lovable is an AI coding platform. There are some others like Replit and Cursor that are quite popular as well. And if I said, I would like to have make me a crypto portfolio tracker that has a blue and black style. Right now, an AI agent, or sorry, an AI coding tool is taking this text and it's going to convert that into code on its side and then build a preview of an early stage prototype. And what happens when you have that early stage prototype built out is you end up having the capacity to take someone who never coded before, but had a really good idea. Now they're going on their journey of becoming a builder. Now, something Shagun and I talk about a lot, and it's a very, very good challenge, is how do we get people right now who are builders to be the first ones so that the people who come next are not necessarily going to have to be as skilled with code? Because Shagun is very right when he says, right now, you use Lovable, but you're still going to need to learn to code a little bit. In the future, it's going to be someone picks up their phone, they have a conversation with an AI agent, and they start describing what they want to build. And then with Pakt, that's when the blockchain comes in. And so it's no longer just a nice Web 2 application. It turns into a nice Web 3 business. So as this spins up, I'm going to talk to you guys about what stakeholder capitalism is now a little bit. And what we're talking about here is a way to move past this world in which there's a lot of distrust. There's distrust between some people and their governments, especially in my country right now. There's distrust between governments. There's distrust between countries. There's distrust between people on opposite sides of engagement online. And there's a lot of distrust, unfortunately, sometimes between different parties in a business. What we recognize is there are basically three superpowers in the world. I'm in one right now. You watching this are in one right now. And then there's the one that we're both in, and that's the internet. If we think of where the brain cycles are spent, where our lives are lived more than anywhere else in terms of total human life, 7 hours a day are spent on screens per person around the world, just about on average. So we need to figure out ways to organize these connections and make sure that trust is the foundation of these connections. And that's where the blockchain comes in. So with smart contracting and with tokens, we believe we can shift from a world where the very few get rich at the expense of the masses to a world where everybody wins when they have a stake in the future of markets, a stake in the future of capitalism, a stake in the future of the economic engines that drive their lives. So what we're trying to do is actually take a page out of a book that I learned recently from one of Shagun's friends, where he was working with China. Segun's friend is an African entrepreneur, and he imports goods from China from manufacturers and sells it around Nigeria and Kenya and throughout Africa. And when I asked him, well, what happens? What happens when you have a bad order or when you have a faulty, a faulty delivery? How do you get your money back? He said, oh, I don't. I go, that doesn't sound good. And he said, well, actually, I just send a WhatsApp message to the manufacturer and they fix it for me because we trust each other. And I was very envious. I thought, well, I would like to have that level of trust as well. And that's where the smart contracts come in, where code as law comes in. We're having business done on the blockchain, having reputations on the blockchain with things like scores, scoring systems. Let me move this out of the way. So when you come here, you know that Joshua is good because he's the top person on the leaderboard. You see his reviews, you see his 5-star jobs. You can scroll through. We need to put actions like that on chain. We need the underlying economic rails for this to be on chain. And so that's why we're now working with AI agents to make sure that we can build out platforms that are going to be on chain in a way that is much easier. The same way that way back in the day, WordPress, I'll scroll down here. WordPress is basically what made the internet that we're all using today in some sense. WordPress started as blogs, and then it evolved into a content management system where people could put templates or mods. And what they did is they created intuitive tooling that made building the websites that are now the internet 100 times easier. The result was Web 2.0. You see WordPress get created, and then it starts sloping up. That's the growth of internet in the form of websites. Our goal is to say what's going to happen when Pakt, our token, and of course, more importantly, our stack, incentivizes you and AI to build Web3. That's how we're going to see this growth. So now I'm going to come back right here to this to what Lovable has been building. And there we go. So Lovable just created a very down and dirty, very simple version of this application called Crypto Tracker. And now we could begin to talk back and forth to Lovable to build this into something that's even more of a usable application. But right now, already, we have the beginnings of a prototype that could be then a minimum viable product that could then be hooked up with Pakt's APIs to become a blockchain business. That's the goal. And so we're now going to show you how we did that with TipJar. So Gideon, if you could, please share your screen, take over for me, and I'll have people understand the prompts and where they got the prompt, you got some of the information from. And then I will show them how I'm going to make a tip, and it's going to show up on the back end of the application. Gideon, I don't think I can hear you. You may be muted. There you go. All right, so this is TipJar. Now, previously you saw TipJar on my screen as an application that's sort of deployed into the real world, deployed online. This is the environment, the dev environment, where Gideon created TipJar. And so, Gideon, if you could scroll through just a lot of the prompts and show people what it takes to build an application like this. Yeah, so you can scroll through even more than that, and then we'll return to this. This is where he basically took the application that he had built on Lovable and then implemented different components. So you can see he authenticated. He added the auth service. Auth, of course, is how do you log in? How do you create an account? How do you make sure that the account is a valid account instead of a spam account? That came from Pakt's APIs. Now this is, as you can see, he's saying here's a field, first name string, last name string, email string. And when he puts that in, what it's doing is it's now saying, oh, well, I've got the developer documentation from Pakt, and I've got the APIs from Pakt, and I've consumed those, and now the AI is able to process our APIs at Pakt, and it implements it into the build that he's created. So right now, you can tell that there's a little bit of code stuff that needs to be put in there, a little bit of code. This is not somebody who is putting in code in a major serious way. This is the AI doing the work for him. So right now, this is a wonderful tool for either developers or designers like him who are code aware. And like I said, in the future, it's going to turn into something where basically you can have a conversation with an AI agent and then hook it up with our APIs and we'll have a business. So Gideon, if you could, now show us where on the documentation you grabbed the wallet to integrate into TipJar, because then we're going to have you log into the real TipJar and I'm going to make a donation to your wallet. So here you go. Basically, we have developer documentation. And what Gideon did is he copied and pasted this URL into Lovable. And then he specified which components of the Lovable build he wanted to be hooked up with Pakt's APIs. And I'll let you know that obviously there are a couple other companies out there that have wallets. There's Circle, which is we're actually a Circle developer grant partner. There's Alchemy. There is ThirdWeb, and also there's new wallets added all the time. But what we offer that's different is it's not the best wallet. It's a very good wallet, but there are other wallets that are also very good. What we offer is an integration into our full blockchain stack. And so when I give Gideon a tip, Gideon, if you could go now to the next tab, to TipJar. So he's now going to log in, and this is the real application in the real world. Go ahead. Okay. And so he's going to give me his link. He's going to copy his link and then just send it to me. You can just use Slack if you want, or whatever you want. Gideon, did you send it to me yet? Well, while Gideon sends it to me, I will I will describe what's going to happen on the back end here. So Gideon, please send me the link, and then I will send you a tip. Okay. So the thing that's going to happen here is we have a blockchain wallet, and every single time that somebody is going to receive a tip on TipJar, it is going to be sent to the blockchain wallet that we spun up for them using Lovable and our APIs. And so what happens then is we are going to end up having you would just sign up with your wallet, and I will actually take over my screen share real quick so I can show you, because I did just get the link. So Gideon, go ahead, and I'm going to take over from you 1 second. Okay. So this is what just showed up on my end. So I got the link, and here's his link. So if anybody in the chat wants to go for it, I'll drop this into, or if you watch this later on, you can just go to this link and send Gideon a tip. I'm going to say my name is Brendan CEO. Select the token, $1, and say this is for the TinTin demo. Now, again, this is not our company. This isn't Pakt. This is just an application that we built with Pakt and AI coders, which means that you will be able to build with Pakt and AI coders. As long as you're able to use an AI and you're able to copy and paste and wrap your mind around the basic coding structure that's necessary for different components that the AI has created for you, just like your designer did, you'll be able to start creating a blockchain business. So I'm going to send the tip, process. I'm going to connect it to my MetaMask, connect the wallet, connect, confirm. And there we go. And once you send a tip, you can also sign up to receive tips as well. So I could create my tip jar, and I would have an account that would get created then. So Gideon, if you could, now please show your screen, and then I'm going to take over one last time after that. So Gideon now is going to show you that he's received the tip. And again, this is an application that could be profoundly powerful. So the payout is pending. and it'll arrive in about 1 to 5 minutes, but we can see that it's already coming through. Now that 1 to 5 minutes, it's actually going to be a lot faster, of course, but we do like to make sure that people understand that sometimes with blockchain and RPC nodes or whatever you're doing, it can take just a little bit longer. Of course, we want it to be within 1 to 2 seconds, and that's how blockchain is normally meant to work. But we always need to make sure that the user experience is something where we don't promise a future that hasn't arrived yet. We always want to promise a better version. You say under promise and over deliver is what we like to say, how we like to operate here at Pakt. So with all that being the case, what we're going to do now is I'm going to take over the screen, Gideon, and I will show that this is now registering on the back end, which is where the Pakt command center is. So this is the Pakt command center. I'll log out real quick. And this is where you can track your business. So we have created Pakt.fund, Pakt.fund. Oops, sorry about that, not printing. Pakt.fund is a place where you can fund projects if you're a community supporter. And then by promoting and tweeting, you get the opportunity to have sort of an early pre-sale style access. You have already seen Pakt Build. Tech 1000 is a social platform. Melody Backer is something our CTO is building, and I'll have him share that in a second. That's very interesting. And then here's TipJar, of course. So Pakt Build, this is something that we built ourselves, and this has had over less than a year. We've moved over $114,000 of value through that, including our own salaries. We make sure that we always put our own money where our mouth is, so to speak. So now let's show you what just happened on TipJar. So TipJar, it's tracking everything. And you can see right here on the notifications, Scalar Bain, our DJ/designer, he got 1.02 of value. And we then receive a 1% fee. And you can change your fees to anything you want. You also have a control panel here. Control panel, you can change your icons. Billing is how we manage your servers for you, because every single platform gets its own server, its own EC2 and S3 on Amazon. But we, of course, are always open to working with other cloud service providers as well. You can do referrals and invites. This is all baked into the platform when you're using Pakt. So you get a link to sign people up, because word of mouth is the best marketing. And then admin management. Nobody should have to feel like they're building their future alone. So we make it so that if I'm the super admin as the owner, I can assign admins or managers or developers, or if I need my platform to have an audit, we can make it observers too. So just to wrap this all up, to make it very simple, we believe in a future of stakeholder capitalism. That stakeholder capitalism is running on smart contracts and tokens. And we know that in order for stakeholder capitalism to be more than just a theory, it needs to turn into products. So what we do at Pakt is we make it easier for you as builders to use AI, which is making life easier for everybody, and to turn those into blockchain platforms so that they can be stakeholder capitalism. That way you and I are equal when we're working online. We always have an opportunity, pardon me, where the best builds will win, and the best builds will be determined by what creates the most value for its users, who are stakeholders. Thank you. We're here to take any questions and to go into more technical details. That's why I've got Shagun here. So anything you'd like to ask, we're here to answer.
OK， thank you Brandon, Shagun and Gideon。OK， 大家有什么疑问可以在这个评论区留言Yeah, I've seen there one person is asking, Zoe is asking about the Pakt tokenizations, like plans and utilities of the token.
Okay, understood. Well, this sounds like someone who's maybe an investor, or at least has an investor mentality. It's a great question. So there's a few different approaches here, but when we think of stakeholder capitalism, that root word stake is proof of stake. And so we believe in a future where we want to launch our own L1. That's why we're building on Avalanche. We also believe in a future where the community who holds the token gets to determine the course of the builds. And that will be done partially, most likely, in partnership with AI agents that also help manage the platforms. We do see a future where AI agents are very helpful in managing builds as they scale. So what we view, or what we do on each transaction that happens with a Pakt escrow wallet, not every wallet, but a Pakt escrow wallet. So if I put money into escrow to pay you for a job, I can take 1%. And what we say here is, would you be willing to pay 1% for an internet you could trust? We think that's a fair deal. So then that 1% goes to buy Pakt tokens. And then we distribute the Pakt tokens into a couple different ways. One of the ways is to the people who are using the Pakt platform. So it's like, here we have credit cards and you get cash back, so to speak. In Pakt, when you use the platform, you will get some tokens back. And this is what we're talking about with regards to people who are using the platforms become stakeholders in the ecosystem. You're not just a customer, you are a co-owner. And what we will then also do is have governance. So as we talked about before, you will have to most likely stake those tokens through the L1 that we launch on Avalanche in order to vote. And we believe that if you're performing the service in proof of stake, of allocating your resources to secure the network, then you are performing a service that basically gives you the right to have a say in the direction of the future of that whole ecosystem, proportionate to what you've staked. So that's another approach. And then, of course, last but not least, in proof of stake ecosystems, if you're going to be fully decentralized, you want to grow to a place where, just like Avalanche, just like Ethereum, people stake their tokens in order to have the monetary security for the network. So those are the different usages of the token and the utilities.
Thank you, Brandon. Yeah. You can see in our chat box there have some questions. Lion
Okay.
posed some questions.
Okay. I'm trying to get to the chat box here. I'm sorry, this is a new platform for me. I'm accustomed to Zoom. I see type to chat, but I don't see the chat box. Testing. Let's see.
Yeah, it works. You
Okay.
can't see any like previous messages.
I can't, unfortunately. I don't know if that's because I'm in America or something else. Oh,
Um,
there it is. I see the chat. There's a chat box on the bottom. There we go. So I see transfers developed using APIs will encapsulate a message, thereby achieving a function similar to that of a transfer reminder bot. That's Lion. Thanks for the question, Lion. So transfers using APIs will encapsulate a message. Shagan, would you like to cover that? Because you actually built a sort of inscription uh, protocol before. You can address that if you'd like.
All right. So to Lion, I think he asked he asked two questions.
Okay. Well, how about you answer this second one, and then we'll go
Okay.
to the first one.
All right, cool. So what we did with the APIs is we just made it like a very simple interface for you to be able to interact with the Stack. So we kind of like provided like several services. So it's not like you are interacting with a certain function. It's like you're interacting with a certain certain part of the business, So we have certain so so we have different API methods that you can call. Can you okay, yeah, you can share the document. Okay, cool. So let's take, for example, on our service, you want to work with the escrow service. All right, cool. So you could just initiate the escrow using the escrow endpoint, and you pass in we have like parameters that you use. Once you pass in the parameters, you have the response that you get, and you do the next, the next step is for you to validate the escrow after you've created the escrow. So it's a very, very streamlined process. So it's not like you have to start having to go through an abstracted function or having to, walk outside the box. We just kind of like streamline what certain businesses, specific business command or business needs. We've kind of tailored them in a very suitable box for you.
Okay. So first and foremost, Lion, does that satisfactorily answer your question? This one, the second question, then we'll get to your first question. Let's see. We'll wait for We'll go to your first question, and then if you have a follow-up question for either one, just please type it in the chat box. So, Shagun, can you please address this first question now?
So I think I don't think it was a question. So after reading it,
Okay.
I think it was responding to when you were explaining the entire import and export process from China and Africa with the example of my friend who basically who is into that business line. So I think it was kind of like explaining the entire process for that it's
Yes.
yeah.
Absolutely. Very, very true. And we could talk about oracles as well in the future. I do believe that we're going to have AI oracles, AI-powered oracles with image recognition, and that have their own form of stake as well. You could see robotics playing a big role in this, whether it's in ports or anything that's sort of in real life. Image recognition plus blockchain will be a verified confirmation from an oracle in real life. But until that, you're absolutely right. We do need human confirmation, 100%. I see, Jenny, you'd like the deck to the PowerPoint. Okay, we can toss that in there. Thank you, Lion. We really appreciate you showing up. And also, just to let everybody know, if you go to Pakt.world, and you can see right here, there's a sign up for beta. So if you'd like to sign up for beta at any point, just click. We're going to have likely 5 beta slots. Some are already spoken for, but what's most important to us is we want to have people who are really passionate about that future of blockchain and stakeholder capitalism. We understand that a lot of people are currently in the crypto industry because it makes a lot of money if you play it right, so to speak. But we like to point out the Jeff Bezos line of missionaries over mercenaries. And you make more money if you have a long-term view and you build that future that we all end up using. And that's not that we're saying we want to be purely motivated by money. We just love the technology. We love how powerful this is going to be for reshaping the world. But we also understand that other people need to be motivated. So we encourage everyone to have a long-term vision for what blockchain is, rather than thinking in, bull market, bear market, what cycle are we in? The future is blockchain and AI working together, and I guarantee you win that future, you will be very happy with all of the results. Most likely, also the business runs for you. Yes, beta. Thank you, Jenny. I'm going to assume that is something related to this. Sign up for beta. Thank you, everybody. Also, I really should say this: the cross-cultural connection is really important. Blockchain is a global industry, and I think that the events like these, moments like this is why we got into this. Shagun obviously and Gideon, they're Nigerian. I'm American. We went to London. Now we're doing some beautiful cross-cultural blockchain discussions in China. Let's keep this going. This is the momentum, and this is the type of global trust that blockchain is meant to embody. Since we still need human oracles, let's be good human oracles of this ecosystem. Okay, so I will drop the PowerPoint. I'll give it to you, Jenny, via the main channel. Maybe it could be a follow-up for anyone who's attended. I just want to make sure I get the PowerPoint that's the right one for you, right, for the purpose. Are there any other questions? Here to answer. Actually, you know what? Maybe I should do this too. Shagun, I'm going to show the Melody backer. Could you send me the link on Slack right now? I think I may already have it. Yeah, this is it. All right, so this is Melody Backer. Sagan made this because he also is a musician. He used Lovable, and this is basically a platform where you can fund your favorite musicians. And he's connecting it to the wallets and the authentication. So you can explore different projects, and you can see he started one already called Midnight Chambers. He's already raised $40. He's trying to get 700. I want to support this project. Now I come in here, I back the project, and we're seeing that we're getting to a world now where you can spin something up in a very short amount of time, and you can take your inspiration and turn it into innovation very quickly. And it's all going to run on Avalanche C chain for the beginning. And then, of course, in the future, once that Pakt has its own L1, we will be running all of this engagement there. So you could start a project yourself if you wanted to. This is going to go live soon. This is a work in progress, but then you can discover different ones. And of course, we'll tell you how it works. It's a crowdfunding type process. So what if you walk away with one thing from this demo today, what we'd like you to walk away with is a sense of it's time for you to build that idea you've always had. It's time for you to say, business, it seems really hard, but if it was just a little bit easier, I would do it. AI is making it a lot easier. And Pakt's job is to make all these applications businesses so that you can be not just a person who comes up with good ideas or good apps, but someone who takes control of your own financial future by building an on-chain business.
Cool. Thank you, Brandon, Shagan, and Gideon. Yeah. If you have any questions, you can drop your questions in the chat box. And you can basically maybe type 1 before you leave your message so we know you're typing. Or you can simply just open your microphone to talk with us. 对，然后大家有什么疑问啊，大家可以这个在评论区留言啊，或者是打开麦克风都可以啊。比如说关于这个 Avalanche 的生态机会啊，或者是 Pakt 项目发展啊等等都可以。再给大家5秒钟的时间吧。好，那我估计现在是没有什么问题了。OK，那我就先分享一下我的屏幕吧。OK，share my screen。Oh, Brendan, there's no more questions. Do you have anything you want to add on for now?
I will say that we will be attending the Avalanche Summit in London. If anyone's attending, I know it's a far way, but we would love to meet you. So please reach out. I just shared our Twitter in the chat. So if you would like to follow us there, we'll always keep you guys up to date on the latest and greatest. And above all, thank you so much for having us today. I look forward to this being the first of many engagements between Pakt and the Chinese Avalanche community. We look forward to building together.
OK，那咱们再次感谢啊，Brandon 老师啊，还有咱们 Shagan 和Gideon老师啊，一个精彩分享。那今天我们也是不仅了解到了啊这个 Pakt 一个创新实践啊，也是看到了这个区块链技术重塑商业模式的一个无限可能。那另外呢，提醒大家一下啊，今天晚上这个直播回放啊，我们预计呢在明天啊，这个 B 站和油管进行更新。然后 Avalanche 这个训练营啊，也是正在报名当中啊，欢迎大家可以扫描上方的一个二维码报名课程。然后想进这个 Avalanche 课程群的这个同学啊，或者您就想咨询一下课程啊，都可以添加这个小助手啊，这个小助手叫 Adam。然后咱们下一场的这个 workshop 呢是在5月15号啊，晚上8点，那是由这个素材库的 co-founder 啊，还有这个 CEO 高铁啊带来一个分享，然后主要是一个揭秘再质押啊，然后将您的这个 L1 呢接入这个素材库，然后也是连接这个质押者和运营节点啊，还有实现一个去中心化啊，大家可以关注一下。然后也是最后呢，祝大家这个周末愉快啊！So time flies. It's time to say goodbye again. So yeah, let us thank you, Brandon, and we have Shagan and Gideon. Thank you again for your wonderful sharing. And tonight we not only learn about Pakt's innovative practice, but also saw the infinite possibility of blockchain technology to reshape the business model. And in addition, I remind everyone we are planning to update the replay of tonight's live broadcast on Bilibili and YouTube tomorrow. And we have the Avalanche development bootcamp is currently registering, so you can simply scan the QR code if you want to learn more about it. Yeah, and I wish you all have a happy weekend, and I guess see you on the 15th of May. And thank you everyone for coming, and see you next time. Thank you, Brandon. Thank you, Shagan. Thank you, Gideon. Thank you all.
Thank you very much. Take care. Have a wonderful afternoon.
Thank you. Bye. Have a good day. Bye.